Hi everybody, my name is Tucker Brisbane and I will be presenting on alcohol misuse in college. So my audience today is actually directly you as a college student and even more specifically a nursing student. But in general, we'll be discussing alcohol misuse amongst the college population. The title of my presentation is called Only on Weekends, and the reason I chose that title is because I think a lot of us, if we do participate in drinking, would say that it's simply a weekend thing. It's part of the culture, it's part of a stress relief, that sort of thing. So this is only on weekends. So as this presentation goes on, you will notice that it is in SBAR format, situation, background, assessment, and recommendation. The reason that being is because, like I said, this is geared towards nursing students, and I figured what better way would we understand analyzing a global issue than through the format of a nursing lens, sort of, so to speak. So when I hear a situation, the first thing that comes to mind is Kim Possible. If you remember that show, you're awesome. If you don't, it's okay. But she always would say, what's the sitch? So what is the situation? Well, the situation is college alcohol misuse is at an all-time high. It's a growing statistic. It's not a new thing. It has been developing for many years, the culture and the issues behind it. The negative impact can span from academic failure to even death. So, students dropping out of college, failing their courses, and then other traumatic events can ultimately come from alcohol misuse in college. So the statistics to back these claims are really alarming, and we'll talk more about those really soon. And I just wanted to include that nursing students are no exception. I know we have no stressors in nursing school whatsoever. So why would this impact us, right? But yeah, so in all seriousness, I would say that actually nursing students and other high stress education programs are really strong candidates to be victims of alcohol misuse and that sort of thing. So, and then I still like this quote from Kim at the bottom that says, "All this on a school night? That's so not the drama." So I agree, Kim. So let's dive more into the statistics backing these claims of alcohol misuse in college. So I'll do a lot of reading, but for the most part, we'll kind of have some time to discuss this later down the road too. But 80% of college students participate in college drinking. To put that statistic in kind of a different format, 4 out of 5 students consume alcohol in one degree or another. 50% of the students mentioned above engage in binge drinking. And what binge drinking is the concept of basically drinking many drinks in one sitting with the intent of impairing consciousness, alertness, that sort of thing. The students who are highest at risk for alcohol misuse, binge drinking, that sort of thing, is the students who are in their first 6 weeks of their freshman year. And why might that be? Maybe take a moment and think to yourself, why would that be the case? So personally, I'd imagine the reason that being is freshman year, you've left the house, all things are new, you're trying to fit in, there's a lot of stress, there's lots of parties in the beginning, and you don't know your limits yet, and that could be the beginning of the trend for you with alcohol misuse. And we'll talk a little more about the events that sort of lead to that sort of thing in future slides. So in general, many young adults admit to drinking alcohol even before they enter college. So imagine how these statistics would be affected if we included maybe even high school students, and how that would impact the students who begin drinking in college or who have been drinking for some years. Now, this is just another format of statistics, and some of them are repetitive, but some of them are new. So that second box there, you'll see that it repeats some of the statistics I've already mentioned. One of the newer ones that I didn't mention, though, was 5% of students, they will be the only ones who seek help. So that's a really low statistic. Why might that be? Well, it could be, shaming, peer pressure, lack of resources to reach out, or information on who to reach out to. And then if you look in this last box, this is some more statistics about the negative traumas that might be associated with drinking at a college age. So 97,000 students or more are victims of alcohol-related sexual assault every year. 599,000 students incur unintentional injuries while under the influence of alcohol. 1,825 students die annually from alcohol-related injuries. 690,000, more than that, college students are assaulted annually by peers that are under the influence of alcohol. 3,360,000 students between the ages of 18 and 24 drive under the influence of alcohol. So talk about startling statistics. Obviously, those are all the negative statistics that are represented here, and there's even more than that. But that alone, that can be really influential as far as almost like the fear factor of the negative impact that this negative coping mechanism has on our generation and generations before us, and as the trend continues, potentially generations after us. So let's dive more into the background of this issue and kind of where it starts and the reasoning it happens. So as previously stated, many young adults will admit to drinking alcohol even before they enter college. Some students might start in high school, some students even earlier. It kind of depends on their life stressors, their exposure to alcohol, and many factors that are almost untraceable to an extent. But overall, as far as what happens when a student goes to college, why does this become the trend? One of the main things that research has found is from the transition to experiencing newfound freedom and independence. When you're moving out of your household, a loss of structure occurs there naturally, and you're finding that independence. You're surrounded by people your age who have similar thought processes, and who do look for that culture, and that is a big part of it. As far as even in this next bullet point here, the availability of alcohol at sporting events, social activities, it's tempting, it's influential. Your exposure to it increases when you go into college. Not necessarily something we deal with at our college, but the concept of Greek life is a large aspect of what can influence alcohol on students. That's part of the culture in those groups to an extent. Not all of them, but many of them do participate in that, and that is kind of foundational to their process there. Parties, social events in college. All of you can, I would imagine most of you can relate that you've all at least been to some social gathering or another where just casually people are drinking. And maybe it's not in excess, but at our age, in our age group, it's very common for us to reach for that as almost like a social bridge. And the issue with this, as far as the background, is one drink can quickly turn to 2, 3, or more. And that might sound, stereotypical when you put it like that. And not to say that everybody turns that way, but especially in social gatherings, even if you're a person that typically sticks with one drink, if everybody is, going for another White Claw or High Noon or whatnot, and they're offering you more, you are statistically more likely to go ahead and reach for that drink, just for the social aspect, if anything else. And consistent drinking leads to a tolerance to alcohol, which we've discussed in class. But overall, this just means that it will require that you drink more and more in order to get the same feeling of a high. And this is where alcohol misuse arises. So frequent heavy drinking greatly increases the chance for someone to develop an alcohol using disorder, which is the medical term for alcoholism. And that can vary. There's a large variance between, what you might think of as a drunk alcoholic and someone who is a functional alcoholic, right? But overall, misusing alcohol can lead to serious physical and emotional damage for students and other individuals alike. Social expectations and peer pressure plays a significant role in this trend, as we kind of previously just talked about, being at parties and being around that culture, and honestly just knowing, like, the American standard of going to college and drinking, depending on your college experience. The impact results in a high number of suicide, depression, academic failures and dropouts, assaults of different kinds, automobile deaths and accidents, hazing and associated injuries, and all kinds of other things. Let's go ahead and dive into our nursing assessment of the situation. The place of focus is going to be in the development of the prefrontal cortex in students our age. So I've put together kind of this little picture, kind of transitional thing to explain kind of what's going on with the prefrontal cortex during the early college years. So in general, the average student at some point around 18 leaves their home for the first time, as pictured in that bottom left corner. They're leaving structure behind. They're leaving their parents' guidance. They're leaving, people to do the laundry, cook the food, tell them when to do their homework, and so on and so forth. So that structure is left behind. And in that second picture there, you see, things are piling up. The calendar is full. And yet the student is still choosing to be on their phone. And you can't read it, but it says procrastogram, which I thought was really funny instead of Instagram. But in general, students do face this initially. Some handle it better than others, but the feeling of being solely responsible for yourself can be really overwhelming. And it's very common, as seen in the third picture, for students to start using negative coping mechanisms. So procrastination might be one, alcohol misuse might be one, drug misuse, falling into depression, and other associated factors that all contribute to one another. But overall, ineffective coping is the ultimate negative outcome of this transitional time period that results from a underdeveloped prefrontal cortex. So at the age of 18 through 24-ish, our prefrontal cortex is still developing, and that's your logic center for your brain, your decision making. You don't know to, make that decision of safety over fun necessarily, potentially, and that's not to go for all. It's not an umbrella thing. But in general, when your parents have said, that's not a good idea, but you're old enough to make that decision on your own, and then we reap the consequence, sort of thing. That is a common thing amongst our age because our logic center isn't fully developed. It's still developing until happy 21st birthday, as you see in the middle there, or 25th birthday rather, and that is when the statistically shown age of fully development of the prefrontal cortex occurs. And so this is kind of a large issue behind the assessment and why this occurs in students so commonly during the college time period.